I've been in Silicon Valley in this market for 21 years now. Every 6 years there is a message that the party is over. Very necessary cleaning of some of the craziness that was happening. Cleaning of the noise is a great opportunity for the best companies, the most resilient, to grow faster. It's finally moved into the direction of the major economies where the startups are really at the center. That is UK, US and Israel.
안녕하세요. 티타임즈 조주정 기자입니다. 오늘은 특별한 게스트를 모셨는데요. 2007년부터 미국 실리콘밸리를 중심으로 기업 액셀러레이팅과 스타트업 투자 등을 하고 있는 마인드더브릿지의 마리누치 대표님입니다. 반갑습니다. 제가 간단히 마인드더브릿지라는 기업을 살펴보니까 스타트업이랑 대기업 연결하는 일을 하신다고 하는데 구체적으로 어떤 일을 하고 있는지 간단하게 소개를 좀 부탁드립니다.
It started as a side project on when I was in my early days at Google in 2007. So I was lucky enough to be part of the early team at the scalability of the scale of Google. And we started as an accelerator program to filter the most interesting international startups that could be validated through Silicon Valley. And over the years, we developed also a number of activity to support the large corporates in that effort of filtering interesting startups to be invested, acquired, or integrated. And so today, 15 years later, we're one of the major players in what is called the open innovation space, also with the support of a seed fund that is called Ma인드더브릿지.
이번에 왜 한국에 방문하시게 된 걸까요?
So we've been working with Korea in the last 8-9 years, particularly supporting the filtering of the most interesting startups that are interested in the scaling in international markets. And these activities has intensified over the years, so much so that in 2019, we opened the first office, our direct presence here. And so today, around 10 startup accelerator programs with Korea per year. And the opportunity for us to, and for me to be here now is because we have one of our large events of this matching platform that is called the Scale Up Summit Korea.
MTB가 유럽에서도 이제 지사가 있으시고 한데 아시아에는 한국밖에 없더라고요. 왜 한국을 아시아 거점으로 삼았는지도 궁금하고 한국의 스타트업들에 좀 주목하신 특별한 계기가 있으셨는지 궁금합니다.
That's a good question. One of the reasons why we decided to come to Korea is mostly driven by the study of the different ecosystems of startups that we do on a regular basis. And one of the data points that we found through our studies is really the acceleration that the Korea ecosystems is been facing in the last few years. It is mostly confirmed by the reports that we keep producing. So in fact, one of the reasons for me to be here is also to launch our report about the status of the Korean ecosystem.
한국의 스타트업 생태계를 어떻게 평가하시는지도 좀 더 들을 수 있을까요?
So the Korean startup ecosystem, I think, is moving from the infancy, we would call it, into a level of maturity. And this is happening really in the last 4 to 5 years. And again, this is data that you can see in our latest report. But two important data points are the following. Since 2020, the number of scale-ups, the way that we define it, we define scale-ups are startups that are more mature, startups that have raised at least $1 million, has incremented by 35%. And the total amount of funding that the same startups have reached in the since 2020 has more than doubled. This is due mostly from a formidable year of 2021 where a lot of IPOs happened, like a Coupang or Kakao. We plot of all the major startup ecosystems around the world two main measures. One is the density of scale-ups based on the population of a country, and the other one is what we call the investment ratio, that is basically the amount of a GDP of a country that is invested in startups and VC funding. And based on these chart, it's interesting to see that South Korea has really leapfrogged the majority of developed countries in the last couple of years, and it's finally moved into the direction of the major economies where the startups are really at the center, that is UK, US, and Israel.
해외 진출에서 성공한 한국 스타트업의 사례가 많지는 않은 걸로 알고 있어요. 그래서 한국 스타트업이 해외 진출이 좀 가능할까에 대한 좀 의문이 들기도 하거든요. 이 부분은 좀 어떻게 생각하시나요?
And again, this is something that has been improving in the last few years, meaning that Korean startups are taking less time than the comparable scale-ups of Europe to become bigger.
잠재력이 엄청 큰 시장이라고 보는 게 맞는 걸까요?
Definitely. I think all the data that I'm sharing look that way.
많은 스타트업들이 해외로 진출하려고 마인드더브릿지도 찾고 할 것 같은데 잘 해외 진출할 수 있는 팁이라는 게 있는지 아니면은 자주 범하는 실수들이 있어서 좀 얘기해주고 싶으신 게 있는지 또 설명 부탁드립니다.
I don't think there is any silver bullet in general. Ecosystem that is trying to export what they have, in particular, in my view and in our role within in comparison with the US market. Having said that, I think there are general suggestions that we typically give to startups in Korea that are trying to become bigger through international markets. One is to prove your product in your domestic market first. So to be able then to be validated in a market that is probably far from you, at least you need to show that the market that you control, you can have a product market fit. The second one is to be able to be validated by people that are known in the market. Again, if you want to come to Silicon Valley, one suggestion that we normally try to give is to build an advisory board made of people that are recognized locally to validate that the quality of the startup is there. The third one is very practical and is the suggestion that in particular for the US market, you're gonna have a US-based marketing because the US market, being a very large market, is by definition very sophisticated when it comes to communication and marketing. And so if you don't play with that rule, it's very difficult then to be noticed.
실패 사례라든가 성공 사례를 좀 보신 게 있으신지 미국에서 마케팅에 관해서요?
It's still at the pretty early stage, but for example, last year we supported a group of Korean startups, and one of them is called Business Canvas. It's a B2B business and whose focus is really to engage as well with the community. And I think they've been pretty successful in the steps that I just mentioned before. First, being validated by local community in Silicon Valley, and two, being able to market their product for and with local communication. And obviously that was facilitated by the fact that some of the co-founders were alumni of American universities.
최근에 투자를 더 이상 받지 못하거나 또 인플레이션으로 기업 운영이 어려워져서 망하는 스타트업들도 굉장히 많은 상황인데요. 이게 미국의 스타트업들도 어떤 상황인지 좀 궁금하고 스타트업의 파티가 좀 끝났다라는 분석들도 있는데 그래서 어떻게 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
So I've been in Silicon Valley in this market for 21 years now. Every 6 years there is a message that the party is over. The truth is that I find this downturn as a very necessary cleaning of some of the craziness that was happening. 2021 has been a crazy year where valuations were absurd in some extent. So we're going back into some of the lack of fundamentals that in the first .com we have witnessed. And this current downturn, to me, is a way to force founders back to their reality check. Also, bear in mind that every downturn and the cleaning of the noise is a great opportunity for the best companies, the most resilient, to grow faster.
스타트업들한테 자문을 하실 때 이렇게 다운턴 상황에서 주로 공통되게 스타트업 창업자들이나 운영자들한테 어떤 말씀들을 주로 많이 하시는지 궁금한데요.
A recommendation is going back to the basics. So try to be much more careful in the use of capital because capital is not unlimited as it seemed to be up until a year ago. And that means being more frugal and being really focused on the cost structure much more than before. Basically just being good entrepreneurs. And I think every investor today in Silicon Valley, but I assume also here, has gone through the same exercise. That is telling all their portfolio companies to try to reduce their cost structure. And the second point of an assumption is that startups will not have an option to fundraise every 6 months as used to be up until last year. So they need again to be focused on moments of fundraising that have to last longer in their development.
그럼 이런 다운턴 상황에서도 최근 미국이든 한국이든 좀 투자자들에게 주목받는 스타트업이 있거나 또는 특정 분야가 있다면은 어떤 분야이고 또 왜 그런지 좀 소개해 줄 수 있을까요?
Well, let me talk about US first. I think in US is an interesting moment if you are investing into the future of energy and sustainability topics, especially after the Biden administration passed bills that are really in support of investment of both research and development of technologies that are in that sector. When it comes to South Korea, the area of metaverse is definitely one that is driving a lot of interest from around the world. And we do believe that Korea is well fit to be a potential world leader in solutions around the metaverse because of the following. You have a great broadband internet access. You have a great creative industries. And there is a history and a presence of consumer electronics that is ahead of the rest of the world. And in fact, back to our report and data that we are publishing, there is a clear signal that the amount of the number of scale-ups dedicated to metaverse in Korea is 9% of the total amount of scale-ups produced this year, compared to 3% of Silicon Valley. Well, actually, let me just mention, if people are interested in all this data, they can just freely download all this data from our website.
오늘은 마르코 대표님과 함께 스타트업계 전반적인 분위기도 살펴봤고요. 또 해외 진출을 준비하시거나 또 지금 어려운 상황에서 버티고 계신 스타트업들을 위한 조언, 꿀팁들도 함께 들어봤습니다. 계속해서 인터뷰 중에 설명하셨던 그런 좋은 통계 자료들은 웹사이트에 무료로 공개하고 있다고 하니까요. 관심 있으신 여러분들도 다운받으셔서 한번 보셔도 좋을 것 같습니다. 마르코 대표님 오늘 귀한 말씀 나눠주셔서 정말 감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you.